Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and I am honored to host this international conversation every day. This is our 110th episode. That means we've been on lockdown in New York for 110 days. 110 days since Tom Hanks announced he was sick. 110 days since the NBA shut down. 110 days since we watched in horror as the entire world became engulfed in COVID-19. 110 days as we've watched America rise to the top of every chart in terms of being affected by COVID-19 and stay there without bending the curve. We bent it a little bit, but we did not flatten it. We did not do what we have to do. And that is where we are at today, day 110. Today, we have a very special topic. We are going to be talking about work and the future of work in a post-COVID world. We have a very special guest. Janine Dennis is with us. She's the Chief Innovations Officer at Talent Think Innovations, and she's the host of Grow on My Terms podcast and founder of the Talent Think Power Circle. And she's going to answer lots of questions as we, on this show, are trying to understand three different crises going on: the health crisis, the financial crisis, the racial inequality crisis. And we use the different episodes to kind of learn about all these different topics. And we're going to bring Janine on in just a few minutes, so please stand by. We want her and you to share this with everybody you know on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. We're live on all those platforms. So if you haven't tagged somebody on LinkedIn, you haven't done all you can to share and connect with people during the show. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree, and I'm just delighted to have you here to be with us, learn with us, as we have been doing for 110 days. If you haven't seen it, I want to show you a little bit of stats about what we've been doing, what we've been learning together all these days. We have here, as you can see on the screen, we've had in our first 100 shows, we've had 1 million plus viewers, 201 guests. 124 of them have been women. We've had doctors, nurses, authors, journalists, CEOs, founders, teachers, professors, speakers from 12 countries, 45 cities. And we have learned from every single one of them. And the entire archives can be found on my YouTube channel. Please check it out, youtube.com/Sreenet. Please tag, please share, and go and check out the archive. There's so much that you will learn, as I do every day on this program. And if you haven't shared this yet, please share on all the live platforms we're on. And a big welcome to everyone who's watching on the recording as well. We want to thank our sponsors who make all of this possible. We want to thank Rutgers and the Global Entrepreneurship Experience. Do you know someone who has a teenager or is a teenager? Tell them about this virtual teen camp. 20% off with code SREE. globalentrepreneurshipexperience.org, globalentrepreneurshipexperience.org. Take a picture, take a screenshot, and please, please share it. We are also brought to you by Muckrack Academy and their brand new Fundamentals of Social Media, a course that I run. We were able to put together a terrific course, not because of me, because of my colleague Linda Bernstein and our friends at Muckrack. It's a free course. 4,000 people have signed up for it. It's about 2 hours of work. You can do it in 2 hours or 2 months. It doesn't matter. mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. Please tag your friends and please tell them about it. They will get a certificate at the end of it, and it's pretty cool. Here's Lauren Mack's certificate that she has shared. We've gotten great feedback, and we're totally grateful to everybody for doing that. And we want to tell you about another show that we run called She's on Call. And I'm honored to executive produce that with Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian. These are two friends and surgeons in New York, and they have guests every week. Last week, yesterday on Sunday, they had Dr. Jordana Cohen and Dr. Olga Garcia speaking and sharing their thoughts on answering medical questions. And you just follow @She's on Call on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Please find and follow @She's on Call. And this coming Sunday before the holiday, they're having a greatest hits compilation. But the week after that, on July 12th, they're going to have Dr. Quinn Capers joining us, the first male guest on the show. And he is awesome, and you're going to learn from him as well. So please follow @She's on Call right now on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. And with that, we are ready for our special show to learn about the future of work. It's called Working Post-COVID, and our guest is here tonight with us. Janine Dennis is here. She's Chief Innovations Officer at Talent Think Innovations. We want to hear where you're watching from. Post your questions, tag your friends, tell us where you're watching from. We want to hear. And now let me bring on Janine onto the show. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you. How are you? Where are you? And my first question is always, how are you doing? How's your family through this crisis?
I'm doing well. I'm based in Port Jefferson Station, New York, which is Long Island, so the suburbs. And the family's doing well, I have to say. We're all keeping healthy and social distancing and doing all the things we can to keep each other safe, but also stay connected. So thankfully, we're good.
What is your explanation of why so many people are not wearing masks and not socially distancing? How do you read people well? Tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just it's a bit of rebelliousness. Obviously, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, or theories, if you will, floating around about what COVID is and why it's here and what the government's involvement in. And I think here's my opinion. As Americans, I think we're very entitled. I think that we're quite bratty. We're the brats of the world, the global stage. In my opinion, we don't like to be told no. We don't like to be told what to do. And so this is like the first time where we're really having to be told this is what we need to do to keep each other safe. And unfortunately, not enough of us think that's important. Obviously, because too, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So there's a lot of good information. There's a lot of misinformation. And I think that somewhat conflates the issue somewhat. But, we're pretty bratty about a lot of these things. And I think, people would do well to really think about it collectively instead of thinking about themselves, especially some of the things that I'm seeing here in New York. But, that's par for course. I guess that's human behavior, not just American behavior.
And that is so sad. You call us the brats of America. You are right. We are the brats of the world, not just America. We're brats of the world. And we are, it's a shame to think about this 110 days, especially those of us in the Northeast, right, who did the hard work, who sacrificed. Thousands of people died. We stayed indoors and we did the work. And now to see the rest of America opening up and those rates climbing and climbing and climbing. We now, as you know, for 3 days in a row, with the highest numbers ever were on these 3 days. That just goes to
Yeah.
You can't even imagine. We've got the big holiday coming up, and it's scary to think about how people, you're someone who teaches people how to think about their own future, their work, things that matter to people. How do they not listen on their health? That's the part that's so shocking to me.
Yeah, I don't think people ever listened about health. I worked in healthcare for about 8 years. And so I kind of have a good understanding of infectious diseases and how they spread and things like that. And so from the very beginning, I was very leery of, how we were handling it at a governmental level, a federal level. And I went into my own kind of I guess hysteria, if you will, of just trying to keep my family safe. People assume they know a lot about health, but really we're finding out we're not very hygienic as a society. We're finding out that we're not a society that values building immunity. We don't eat very well. We're not very, great at nutrition. And, we want things like yesterday. We're a go society. And because of that, and because of our ties to capitalism and having to always make a dollar, a lot of corners get cut, obviously. And so, all of these things are really bad for trying to battle something like this. We're far from being out of it. I think there's just a lot of wishful thinking going on right now about what this is, but it's my opinion that we don't even really yet know, nor do the officials know really what they're dealing with yet. And we're still in the first wave. So, we were very premature in terms of how we approached going back out, reopening the economy, and a lot of those things. But we'll learn from that. That's trial and error, right?
It absolutely is. Before we move on, just tell us Talent Think Innovations. How did you come up with that name? And I can put together the words individually, but how did they smush them together for me and explain how you did that?
Sure. So, when I built this business coming off of working in HR for Brookhaven National Lab. So Brookhaven National Lab is one of the 12 national laboratories in the Department of Energy complex. And so part of what my gripe was upon leaving that position was that, I didn't feel like in HR we were doing a lot of deep thinking about the reasons why people come to work and what actually motivates them to do a job. And I don't think we were thinking through a lot of our strategies. And so when I was building this and I had to think about what I wanted to name it, I was thinking like, what are the three prongs that are really going to be pivotal to work going forward? And that is talent, the people, obviously, how we think about things, how we see the world. Are we thinking through each of the problems that we face in the world of work in the right ways? Are we asking the right questions? And then innovation. And I know innovation's a bit of a buzzword, but it seems to me that it's a necessity going forward, especially as we dive deeper into the fourth industrial revolution, that there's a certain amount of innovation that's going to be extremely crucial to our survival, not just as a species, but just as a global economy. So that was what I was thinking about when I smushed those three things together.
I love it. And I want to hear more about your work and everything we're doing. But first, we're going to do what we call a global tour. People are telling us where they're watching from. So as you watch, if you can, we're going to name these different places. If you have any special memories of them, or if you have, if you've eaten at a restaurant that you remember there, any memories, or if it's just on your bucket list, you can tell us. Or if you hate the place, you can say that too. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
And you can do a shout out to any of your friends who you see on the list as well. And everybody watching, just say hi and also ask a question. This will be a chance for you to connect and learn together with me and Janine. Okay, here we go. We start with Ron Thomas is watching in Dubai, and he says, be sure to tell Janine I said hello. And oh my God is because he knows everybody. And I responded, oh my God, you know everyone. And we tagged our friends Neil Parekh and Sunny Slaughter.
So I love Ron, and I think it's important to note that Ron is a huge reason why I even started Talent Think Innovations. He's one of the people that gave me the push to do that. So Ron's a really great friend, and I adore him. And I've not been to Dubai, but I hope to. It's one of those places that's on the bucket list.
Nice. Our guest yesterday, Will Sutton, said he doesn't like using the word bucket list because then you think about kicking the bucket. So he just said it's on his list. So I like
it's on the list. I like that. That's true.
Jonathan Borstein's watching from Union Square. You should know he's watched 110 episodes.
I saw that yesterday. Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Jonathan.
Union Square, you've, of course, been?
Many times.
Yes. Anand Babu's watching from India. Have you been?
I've not been, but I definitely want to go.
All right. And my
Very
dad
much
is
so.
watching from Kerala in India. Hi, Acha. Love you. It's great that I can connect with you like this. And he says 110's, my God, 110 days. Really,
Hi, Dad.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing.
And I would say, Janine, that, we have to laugh a little bit because otherwise we would cry at the situation. It's so pathetic. Like America, the world's greatest country, we like to say, and this is our situation. It's pathetic. That's a word I would use.
I agree.
Roberta's watching from Richmond, Virginia.
I've been to Richmond, Virginia. Hi, Roberta. I like Virginia very much. I was there in December, actually, not in Richmond. I was in Portsmouth. Okay,
nice. And Roberta is a good friend of the show, and it's great to have her here. Linda's watching from Long Island, where you are.
Yay! So. Hey, Long Island. Hi, Linda.
And Martin's watching. Hi, Martin, and says, looking forward to another great show. Martin gave me one of our highlights. We were doing a show with the great Bill Ritter, the Channel 7 ABC anchor here in New York. And Martin told Dr. Ruth the great Dr. Ruth about the show, and then we had a quick conversation and connected all of us. It was amazing.
So cool.
Yeah, and it was while Bill was recovering from COVID on the show. He came on. It was like an amazing, and it was all the way back, like episode 23. It just feels like a lifetime.
Oh wow.
All of that. Stefan's watching from Ramsey, New Jersey. Any New Jersey memories that you can tell us?
The shore. I miss the shore a great deal.
Yeah. And Paula is watching from Tallahassee, Florida. Paula is part of our awesome team that does many of our projects, including our great show called the New York Times Read Along. And this past week, last Sunday, we had Tom Jolly, the print editor of the New York Times, was with us, reading the New York Times every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. And then this past Sunday, we had Pavan Dhingra, who is who is an author who's written a book about hypereducation, why good schools, good grades, and good behavior is not enough, and something that people want to check out. And
Yes.
Dr. Marina Kurian, co-host of She's on Call, was with us. And next week, we're super excited. Everybody should tune in on Sunday because we have Trish Hall, the former editor of the New York Times op-ed page, will be with us. And she's the author of a whole book on the inside scoop on the New York Times editorial page and Writing to Persuade. How do you persuade people to do things 8:30 a.m. Eastern on Sunday? So everybody should join us. So tell us about Tallahassee, if you've been, or Florida, obviously, I'm sure you've been.
I've not been to Tallahassee. I've actually been up and down most of 95 in Florida. I did that about 2 years ago, did a bit of a road trip with my kids. So that was fun. But Tallahassee's one I haven't hit. I've gone as far as Jacksonville, though.
Nice. All right. And Linda says there's also an American culture of "Don't Fence Me In," that song, right? There's a song, "Don't Fence Me In." And we don't understand that even when it's for our own good, we won't listen. And that's what we're proving to the whole planet, that we're like this. Watching also is Rose Horowitz from Connecticut, one of our two awesome producers, and she connected us and brought you to us. We're very grateful. And be sure to follow her, Rose Horowitz 31. Our other producer is Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon, and she says make sure we follow Ms. Janine Nicole, which is MZ Janine Nicole on Twitter. So check her out. And here's somebody saying, hi, wash your hands. How can a doctor handle a crazy person? I don't know what he's talking about, but wash hands is good. Everybody wash your hands. And Ashok is inviting you to the state of Kerala in India. Now, what can you tell us about Vegas that doesn't have to stay in Vegas?
So Vegas is interesting. I wanted to go to Vegas for so long, and then I finally made it there, and I was like, that's it. I enjoy it for the food, but I have about like a 3-day limit in Vegas, and then it becomes overwhelming for me, and I have to exit quickly.
Exit stage left. There is, of course, also a lot of HR and conferences and conventions that take place in Vegas. Sometimes they're in July and August in Vegas, which is super hot.
It's insufferable.
But that's why they go, because they get cheap hotel rooms, right? Unfortunately.
They do. And unfortunately, here in New York, we don't have a ton of event space that's actually reasonably priced. And so that's why a lot of them take it to Vegas. So I get it, but it's, I'm like in and out.
Rose is quoting you on Ron Thomas, is one of the people who gave me my push to start my business, Talent Think Innovation. And Ashok is asking for the website address. So it's Talent Think Innovations.
Innovations.com.
Yeah, plural.
Yes, innovations.com.
Yes. And Rose is tagging friends, Hillary, Blake, Allison, everybody do that.
All my people.
And Pavan's here. Pavan, we just talked about you. I hope you caught. Everybody, make sure you get Pavan's book about hypereducation. And do you have young kids in your life that's still in school around?
I'm going to get that book. I feel very strongly about our education system. I have 3 kids that are school age, so I definitely feel like this is something I should read and even go back and watch. So hi, Pawan. So
may I suggest that maybe you agreed to do this so quickly so you could escape from the kids for an hour? Is that possibly true?
Maybe. Just a little.
Yeah, thank you. And Sky is talking about our talk with Will Sutton yesterday and says it was a persuasive discussion, and also maybe the one in the morning with Pavan. Hello from New Delhi, India. Steep rise in cases here. We're all in this together. And that's absolutely true. We feel like we're connecting. Pavan's watching from Minnesota, and it's fascinating. He was telling us that he is in Minneapolis right now, where, of course, we know George Floyd was killed, and all of the unrest that has come out and the uprising against the status quo that is changing the world. There's no doubt things are happening. How much they will continue to happen, how far it will go, we don't know. But as we said on the show yesterday, that the Mississippi flag is taking off the stars and bars and the Confederate symbols is a great start. They're banning the Confederate flag at NASCAR. They are taking Aunt Jemima off the labels. There's things happening, whether this is systemic or cosmetic. It's a start, and I will take it in for many things. Shonali, hello from LA.
LA. I've never been, not yet.
Wait, are you serious?
No, I've been to the Bay Area, but not LA.
All right, so we know where you want to go on your list right after. Get you to LA for sure. Lori's watching from Westchester County, which is in the New York City area. And Apollo says, yep, that's Vegas. And Shonali said she went to Vegas at age 5. I need to go as an adult. So she's from LA. So I think you show her Vegas. You and Apollo show her Vegas.
There you go.
She shows you LA. How about we do that?
That sounds right. That sounds about
Manuel
right.
is watching from Spain.
España.
And you've been?
I have. I went last year. I was in Sevilla, and then I was also in Portugal for some time. So I love Spain.
Nice. And that's great. And last couple of comments. Melissa is a New Yorker who moved to Australia and is a career coach. She's awesome. I'm so glad she's watching. A question for you as we just look at a couple of more of these. Ram Rahman's watching from Delhi, an awesome photographer, activist.
Nice.
Ram, we need to have you on our show. Please let me know when you can join. And Shonali says, deal on that LA Vegas swap.
Yay! Let's connect.
So let me ask you, Janine, about people who move for work. What is your advice to people as they're thinking about, do I stay where I am? And this is before COVID, of course, everything's been changed. But just if we can just address that, about working overseas, having that not just adventure, but also learning that comes from working in a different environment, different customs, different culture, different work culture. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah. So when I went to Spain and Portugal last year, it was for leisure, but it was also for me to learn more about the culture and really just kind of immerse myself in it. And I've always had this pull to be an expat at some point. I don't know if it'll happen, but it's always something tugging at me. I think there's a value and getting out of, the confines of Western culture and getting to another place, if it's something that you're interested in, to learn how other people live, how other people see the world, how they regard their history. I had some of the most profound conversations last year and then I ended up in this group, true story. It was a biking tour that I took through Airbnb for like $15 or something like that. It was myself, an Irish woman, a couple from Ibiza, 2 other women from the US, and 2 women from Italy. And we discussed everything from politics to history to, our aspirations and our dreams. And I learned so much from them just in the few days that I was in Spain. And I would be lying if I didn't tell you that it has changed my whole world, my whole outlook. I came back here profoundly different, seeing the world differently. A lot of what we think is important here in the US doesn't play that well on the global stage. If you try to stretch it out to meet, other stories, it just doesn't play well. We're really quite unique in what we think is actually important, what we actually think is a problem, some of the socioeconomic factors that we have yet to solve for here. And so I definitely think that if it's something you're thinking about, moving abroad or just taking some time to do a stint in a job abroad, I think that it will expand you in ways that you can't even imagine.
That's great. Great to hear that perspective. And we're just showing your website again. It's talentthinkinnovations.com. So everybody check that out and follow her on Twitter. She's MZ Janine Nicole on Twitter. So we have lots of questions coming in and people asking questions, and I have some for you. So let's talk about what's happening. And well, before that, tell us about your work. What are the kind of services you offer? Where people hire you? Give us a sense of some of the companies you work with and what you're thinking post-COVID. So set us up before COVID and now what you're offering, what we should be thinking about.
So Talent Think has always kind of had a mind of its own, if I'm honest. Just from the very beginning, I think I thought it was going to be this talent management firm, which it has been. But like some of my first jobs out had nothing to do with HR whatsoever. Nobody wanted to hire me for any of those things. What happened was I had built myself this brand online, and I had these small businesses and solopreneurs that were fascinated with how I did that. And so I did early on a lot of digital marketing work, a lot of social media management, a lot of PR work is what Talent Think did early on. And then eventually it was like, wait, Janine, you do HR, right? Can you help me with this handbook? Can you help me with this thing? And so there was that kind of pivot. So I say that to say that, businesses often kind of evolve on their own and take on a life of their own. But more or less, Talent Think has been focused on talent management and workforce planning on that end of the spectrum. So everything from how a business organization would hire somebody, how you would retain somebody, and ultimately develop them. So the true life cycle of what an employee would go through in an organization, I'm the person that people would bring in to look at that strategy, to have them help them ideate around those sorts of things. I also do a lot of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging work. So I spent a lot of time when I did work in HR desk doing diversity strategy, reaching out to various organizations, making sure that our, good faith efforts were on point and genuine, and that we were really working hard to make those connections with marginalized groups of people. So I have a history and track record with, that building programming around diversity, inclusion, and equity. And then because the marketing was where I started off, I just decided to add that in. So I do a lot of campaign work and brand nomenclature and brand strategy, building influencer programs for various organizations. And I'm also a techie. So I do tech advisory, usually the sourcing for tech, as well as post and during implementation strategy. I work with vendors on the other side of it, where they'll come to me for product review. So to look at their products and tell them like how viable it is to actually go to market. And I would say in the last 2 years, I've gotten into the wellness space, really out of a personal place, from a personal place, because I've taken my wellness more seriously in the last 5 years. So working with organizations to see that they have their people are well when they come to work, that they're looking at things like mental health, that they're looking at things like psychological safety and emotional safety at work, and having the right programs and the right strategies in place to support that.
That's so useful and so helpful for people to know those particular kinds of things that you're doing. Let me pull up here an article that you were involved with, and it's called Employee Mental Health, How to Lead a Mindful Workforce. And when you were seeing, you're talking about health, you also meant mental health, obviously. So talk a little bit about this. This is June 2020, so this is new, and it's very relevant to everything we're talking about. So can you take us in a deep dive on this, please?
Sure. So I have this theory that's not so much a theory, it's actually my experience just working in HR, working with different organizations, that the labor movement has effectively destroyed the workers. And, some of it early on was very unintentional. It just was us as a society trying to move society forward, through industrial revolutions and innovations and technology. But a lot of it, towards the latter half, which is what we're in right now, moving into the fourth industrial, has kind of been intentional destruction, if you will. This idea that somebody's going to come work for you and they're going to be on 24/7 and they should be smiling and they should be happy every day and they should put their best foot forward and they should fall into this really linear framework for what an organization thinks is a productive and valuable employee, I think is a very archaic principle. Mental health is a huge concern, certainly here in the US, but depression and anxiety is already being slated to be a global epidemic over the next decade. And so that is knowing that and knowing that we have 50% of the population that also suffers from loneliness due to the way that we've chosen to live just as a society, brings to bear mental health. It puts it right in our focus. And I think it's important as employers and obviously societally to think about, how we're regarding mental health and what we can do to better support people. And how do we not alienate people because they suffer with depression or anxiety, or if they happen to be on the neurodiverse spectrum? How do we support these people and stop treating them like there's some sort of anomaly to the overall fabric of the workforce, and instead include them understanding that these are real things. These are not afflictions per se, but these are real things that human beings are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and they bring it to work with them. And because they do, I think we have a duty to do better by them, and really create programs and ecosystems that support people's varied needs.
That's terrific. Thank you for pushing on that. Was it hard to write about it in the middle of everything that's going on, or was there just so much material that you had access to?
Yeah, well, I became a mindful meditation teacher in the last year. And I've been on my own meditation journey and mindful journey for the past 5 years. So I'm very passionate about it. I was a workaholic. I'll own that. I'm a recovering perfectionist, as I say. And so, I've suffered through burnout. I've definitely had my own struggles with anxiety before, just trying to juggle a new business, working full time, trying to keep up appearances as a mom and all the other things. And so I have a great deal of compassion for people who, have to deal with that on a daily basis. And I think what I wanted to bring to bear is that there isn't a specific face around what these things look like. It's you, it's me, it's anybody you interact with. Like, there isn't a specific face, and we really need to normalize that this is something and, put more money and more efforts behind it.
Thank you. Let's see. Linda says, I was an expat in Hong Kong for several years. Besides immersion in a totally different culture, I learned about myself, my values, and how to get along with people of different backgrounds. Go, is what she says. And Apollo says, I find living in South Asia helped me deal with traumatic experiences in the US. It gave me perspective that helped me survive the dangers here as a Black man with demographic affinities that would constantly be triggered. Little did I realize that living in India, learning meditation, yoga, enabled me to avoid reacting to provocations by authorities here. It took me out of the stereotype modeling that's a mainstay in American institutions that designed to rule culturally inappropriate. You can read that. That's so important. He says the office optics for a Black man can be a dance if there are thousands of cuts in some company. No lie, he says. Thank you, Apollo, for sharing. One of the things you'll find here on the show with our regular viewers is that they share, and we've built a real community, and I'm so grateful to them for doing that. Let's see, Vandana is sharing your article. Tell us what HRD Connect is. Is that something that the layman can access?
Yes. So HRD Connect is an amazing community. They're based in the UK, and they really are pushing, I think, the gamut in terms of, HR thought leadership, if you will. There's not a topic that I've approached them with this year. I'm a contributor for them, a regular contributor, but there's not a topic that I've approached them with that they've said, no, we can't touch that. I mean, we've touched religion, we've touched mindfulness, we've touched workforce planning. So all of the regular things, but they're not afraid to allow you to go outside of the box either. So they're wonderful. I highly recommend signing onto their website. I think you just have to give maybe like an email or something because their content is gated recently, but outside of that, great content.
That's great to know. So I'm going right into your LinkedIn, and we're gonna nothing like having a whole bunch of people check out your LinkedIn in public, huh? So we're gonna do that.
Ta-da!
Here you are. I'm obsessed with LinkedIn. You should know that. And I just had a conversation. I was lucky enough to have a conversation with the head of engineering at LinkedIn and talking to him about what they're doing. Did you know that LinkedIn content, the news articles and content that they share, is bigger than the Wall Street Journal and New York Times combined? They're bigger than Medium. They're bigger than all those places. So it isn't just a job hunting site or career management site. Mm-hmm. It's really a content site, as you know, as well as anybody. And I thought it would be interesting for people just to see how you've built your business, what you've done. Hey, I see my friend Vala Afshar is here, who's a great guy.
He's great.
He is great. What is this, an article he wrote, or you linked something to him here?
So we were a part of a think tank with IBM at one point. So that might actually be a link to something we did back then. That was around 2013.
Wow, nice. So this is also, I recommend everybody put in links to the work you've done, and then people can read, click through and read that. And it's pretty cool that they can do that. And you've worked in so many different places. You worked in healthcare, as you said, and you worked with a nursing organization. Just look at that. It's really cool. You got you got a certification. You did your BA at Hofstra. You did your master's at Cornell. And this is just all great that you've done all of this kind of work, volunteer work, really important. And then skills and endorsements, very important, folks. Everybody, look at this: 9 received recommendations. She's also given them. Give and get recommendations, especially at this time. Put in your accomplishments. Look at the languages she speaks. All of this is really cool. And what are the things she's working on? What is she interested in? All of that in one place. So I love that you've got such a great LinkedIn, which of course I would expect you to have. So that's great. Let's keep going. Let's get some questions in here. We only have 20 minutes left. The time has flown by. I promise.
Wow.
20 minutes already. Linda said, any thoughts on how companies are handling employees' wellness during telecommuting during COVID crisis? Any tips on what they should prioritize?
Sure. What I'm hearing a lot is this work from home is actually resulting in people working much longer hours than they might have even in the office. And even if they were doing it in the office, there was a clear break in that, there wasn't life spilling over into the office. It's quite a bit different when you're working from home. I saw somebody on Twitter say the other day that it's not work-life balance or work-life anything. It's life, and then you're working work into it. So I think that employers need to really, have some hard stops, like really put some parameters around work. In a lot of cases, and this was true even before COVID, some industries, some jobs, the work never ends. And so having your employees work until all 9, 9:30, 10, 11 o'clock at night, you're texting. I know some people that are getting texts from bosses all 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the morning. This is crazy. So I think that there needs to be an establishment of boundaries. I think that speaking to your employees individually as well as a team and finding out what works for them and what doesn't is important. I'm a huge fan of crowdsourced leadership. I'm not saying give away all your power, but I do think that your job is to create an environment in which your employees can be productive and also content, happy even while they're doing it. So you may have some employees that are fine with the late night texts and maybe, that's fine. But I think having some parameters in place, like, okay, if you're working at 9, let's have a hard stop at 5 as a team so people can get on with their lives and have some kind of, separation between what they're doing with work and what they're doing at home. I've also suggested that, now that we're doing Zoom calls and things like that, I'm hearing from people who are more introverted. They don't always want to be on camera. And it's not because they're hiding anything. It's just maybe we don't make people have to show themselves every day. Maybe we just talk through things and get on with it. Maybe before we even start diving into work, we do like a sanity check or a health check. You know, how's everybody doing? How's your families doing? If there's, you know, putting a proclamation out there that if there's anything that, you know, it would be helpful for them to know, or any way that they can help you, you know, opening yourself up like that as a leader, I think is really important. And certainly if you're a mindful group, taking a few moments in the beginning of a meeting to do some breath work together, or even to have like 5-10 minutes of silence among each other, like almost in a meditative state, is a great way to get people to kind of calm their nerves, particularly if they had kids going crazy before they signed on and all of that. It's just a good way to kind of bring it on down, and setting up times like that throughout the day where people can kind of come together and breathe outside of the work, I think are great ways to not only build camaraderie, but to squelch some of the angst that people may be feeling around juggling it all, because it really is a lot. Everybody got thrust into it, no fault of their own. And I think we have to be really vigilant about checking on our people and making sure they're really good.
That's so useful. By the way, there was a time, you remember when we could get things done on the phone? We could have an audio conference call, dozens of people, things got done. We were able to work without this camera. I just don't understand why people are just now so addicted to this. They'd never used it, and now they're addicted to it. One of my friends says, you know, I always try to do 2 or 3 calls just on the phone. Just say, I'm your non-Zoom call for today. And I thought I was great. And I want to borrow that idea as well, because it's so important. Why we've kind of fetishized this camera thing, and everybody has to be on. And there, you know, you can just keep working and to get a lot done. We used to do big projects around the world without ever seeing each other. And now we're like, we have to see each other, and it's a lot. My mom's watching from Kerala. Hi, Amma. Love you. Great to see you. And Paulo says, what about the possible extension of working from home with rolling outbreaks, with all these outbreaks that are coming? How are you thinking about that?
I think it's inevitable. I've been on a few calls, particularly with the CUNY and SUNY systems here in New York, just listening to a lot of the administrators try to think through how they're going to bring faculty back, how they're going to bring kids, you know, the students back, and what that looks like in terms of, you know, the social distancing and all of that. And anytime you get into a situation where you're asking more questions that never lead to answers, you know, you're pretty much doomed. I think people don't want to have to face the inevitable that potentially we're looking at a total dismantling of everything we knew in terms of how we work and how we live. And seeing as though we're still, I mean, according to Governor Cuomo anyway, we're still in this first wave as far as he's concerned. And he's gone on record saying that. I don't see how we wouldn't have that as a possibility, you know, and I think a lot of organizations have already realized, like, what is the purpose? Why are we bringing people back? Why are we forcing this thing? They've found some efficiencies, not only in how people are working, but also there's some cost savings involved for those that were struggling to pay for a brick and mortar. So, I mean, there's advantages and there's downsides to a lot of this, but I think as the months draw on and we start getting towards the fall time, we ought to be honest about what we're dealing with here. I don't believe that we're going to be able to kind of skirt past COVID and say, okay, we're in a post-COVID phase, and suddenly now people can just traverse into the office and things will be normal. It isn't reasonable. I think that there are some sectors that will do better at putting things in place so that people can work safely. And there's going to be a lot of sectors that are not going to be equipped to do that. And they're going to have to figure out something different. And that something different would probably be working from home, unless that's just not possible, in which case there are other considerations there.
Thank you. Let's keep going into these comments and questions. Shiva says, great guest and interview, and a fellow mediator too. Mindfulness, TM, and other meditation practices. Meditator. I said mediator. Sorry, I meant meditator. mindfulness and other meditation practices are popular here in the Bay Area, watching from Cupertino. And also agree with Janine on the extraordinary value underappreciated in the US of working, immersing in another country and culture. Lived and worked in Japan for 6+ years as a US citizen and got me to see the world, America, Japan, India, etc., from rather unique perspectives. I was born in Tokyo, so I know a little bit about Japan. And Apollo says, nice, sanity checks are important. All great suggestions, says Linda. So that's a thumbs up. And we're too comfortable with the camera. There's so much photography on the internet.
Too much.
Yeah. Rachita is asking, or is saying, got accepted into the Yale School of Management, excited, but also anxious about my prospects in the States after my program. What advice would you have someone flying to the US for higher education right now? And I will just, while you're thinking on that for just a second, I want to tell everybody that we had a really good panel on this topic. We had two immigration experts join us just the other day, and they were speaking about what's happening with U.S. immigration laws, what's changing, etc. And one way to think about it is it really depends on who wins this election, because if the president is reelected, then you can be sure that they're going to really push on some of these hardcore anti-immigrant opportunities and laws, and all of that are going to be pushed through. And if not, then we will expect to see some of that. It might be kind of a real readjustment, but we don't know. Both of them, however, they are immigration lawyers, were optimistic that there would be lawsuits and other ways in which things might change. As we saw with DACA, you can never predict what the Supreme Court might do. But in a second term, all bets are off.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You know, we had this thing when I worked at the National Laboratory that if the Republicans had the majority, we knew that we were doomed for failure. And so, you know, we were an R&D mostly lab too. And so there was a lot of higher education, a lot of people on H-1Bs and even F-1s coming to do research with us. But, you know, it was one of those things. It was the first time in my career that I experienced this. So it was quite off-putting to see the tumultuousness of, you know, our research and how it can be, you know, there could be this upheaval just by a matter of which political party was going to be in, you know, in the majority. And so it's hard to know. I think that I would rely very heavily on Yale. That is a prestigious institution, right? So first off, congratulations to you, but I would rely very heavily on them in terms of when you get yourself here and get yourself settled, you know, what are the sorts of things that they're doing to kind of make sure that you have those opportunities? What kind of connections do they have to industry? What kind of connections are they making to decision makers and business people that will allow you to be successful beyond your tenure, you know, as a student? I think those are important questions. And those were important questions regardless of what was going on in the country right now. I mean, even when I did my undergrad 15 plus years ago, these were things that were really important to me at Hofstra. And I would say I was probably one of the very few students that made sure I took advantage of any little program that could get me where I needed to be upon graduation. So it's not just advice for you, of course, but I think it's just a good practice in general for anybody that's entering higher education going forward.
Thank you. We want to ask you, we have just 10 minutes left. Talk about, as you know, I mentioned to you, I've lost my job once before in a very public way. And so I know what happens, what it's like to be unemployed. One person unemployed means it's that person's affected, their immediate family, broader circles, even your dry cleaner, right? You won't go out as much for restaurants, dry cleaning, all of that. So I've seen the impact of one person losing their job. What is it like when 40 million people have lost their job? This is not like back in 2008 where you could think that, you know, you could see kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. In some cases here, we saw the light too soon and we're paying for it now. So what is the advice you're giving? How can you give us any hope, any positivity in the middle of this crisis?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that we're being reset. And I know that that's off-putting to a lot of people to hear, like, what do you mean we're being reset? But if you really look at what we were doing, as an economy, as a society before this, you'd be hard pressed to find much that was really great about how we were working, the ways that we were treating our workers, the way we were treating one another. I have really chosen to step back from COVID, understanding that it's obviously a palpable issue and problem and something to pay attention to, but to see it from a higher perspective that perhaps we were on the wrong trajectory and perhaps there's a better way of doing things. And so, unfortunately, some of that means having a large quantity of people out of work at once, which is very off-putting. But ultimately, some of that also puts pressure on our decision makers to make some changes. There were people that were working before making a wage that wasn't livable. They were making a wage that didn't allow them to even still put a decent meal on the table. They were making a wage that still had them strapped for cash. And yes, we can talk about people who, are mishandling their money, but I would venture to think that that's the minority. I mean, the expenditures, just even here in New York, are ridiculous. Most people are working like 2-3 jobs here in New York just to make it. That's absurd. And so, I think that this unemployment issue is an opportunity really for us to reimagine work. I want people who are unemployed to take heart that some good will come of it. I've been telling people for like the last decade that they should be looking to see what other skills they have that they could actually monetize in some way. And I'm not talking about building a business like I did. I'm saying, what are some other skills, some other things that you're passionate about, that you're really good at, that you can, in the short term, use to bring in some sort of money into your household so you can sustain yourself. We've gotten so pigeonholed into a title and a job and a company that we need to start thinking outside of the box, right? You want to put food on the table. You have to keep a roof over your head. That just takes money. It's not about the job that you're doing or the title you have. It's about doing something that allows for that to happen. So I would say that this is a really great time to be exploring other skills, to be upskilling yourself for a potential role in the absence of a job. And listen, if you have to, clean a few toilets, do that and put food on the table. If you have to go prop and fold at Target, do that and put food on the table until such time that you can see your way in this ecosystem to get back to a job that maybe is more meaningful for you. But I think we have to get a little bit more, akin with our survival tactics, and it goes back to what I said in the beginning about being very entitled. We're really quite entitled. We've had it good. We've had jobs and it's been wonderful. And we've been traveling and we've been doing brunches and, it's been a jolly old time until now. And now we're going to have to see who really has the stick-to-itiveness to get through this, really chaotic time.
Thank you. Arlene says, great commentary. Linda says, Arlene says, I once worked 4 jobs at the same time and still could not pay my bills. And that is what is really very sad. And Linda says, Janine is fabulous. Enjoyed the show, but need to sign off now. Thank you. Be well. Goodbye.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks for joining us. Apollo says, I delivered food on a bike. Sexiest job I ever had. I'm not sure. What are you talking about? Daryl says, what are SUNY and CUNY doing to mitigate the fact that students are using less than 60% of what they learn for the rest of their lives? How can we move forward concentrations of tertiary education for proactive needs? So SUNY and CUNY, for people listening, are the state and city university systems in New York, but his question could apply to everybody, right? We don't necessarily teach job skills or life skills in college where we should. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I don't know firsthand what they're planning to do with regard to that all of what I've heard is just a lot of, I'm hearing a lot of wanting to retrofit a new problem on an old system, right? I don't believe that they've reached a place yet where they're ready to innovate and actually start to think outside of the box. They're literally trying to figure out, how do we bring people back? How do we keep an already meager budget afloat? And that's really where they're at with it. And so, I hope that in the next month or two, we start having some more innovative conversations about things like that. And I think that's true, not just at the higher education level, it's true even at the K through 12 level. I mean, when I really look at what my kids were saddled with for the last few months in terms of what the school districts wanted, I told them flat out, I saw them trying to uphold their budgets with Albany. It had nothing to do with whether these kids would actually need half of the things they were learning 6-7 years out. Most of it will be obsolete, quite frankly. But because so much of education is tied to dollars and cents, at the state and federal levels, people are very leery about restructuring that system, because obviously some people are going to lose. Maybe it's going to be the professors, maybe it's going to be the teachers, the administrators, and they have to be honest about that sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Ankit says you are right. And Rachika says, thank you for so much, Janine and Sree's Daily, joining you all for the first time and looking forward to be part of future discussions. That's great. We're on every day, every single day, mostly at 9 p.m. Eastern, but sometimes at noon Eastern time as well. And the recording starts right here after we're done, or you can catch all episodes on my archives on youtube.com/Sreenet. And Ankit is watching, and my mom says, another great show. Proud of you, darling. And thank you, Amma. Proud of you and everything you're doing. Ellen says that is really this is what she's talking about, that it's really frightening that this is not nearly over. And nice that we're opening up, but opening up in many cities, in many states, is increasing the cases. And that's where we are. And Apollo says, delivering food on a bike while great exercise did not cover the bills. Was living on the edge and so little regarded until the pandemic that even then it was a double-edged sword, as these workers are more exposed to the virus, and it's really, really sad. So before we go, I was showing our viewers a couple of the articles and podcasts you were part of. One of them was about diversity, inclusion, and equity in the George Floyd era. So if you can give us like a headline on that. And the other piece was about NYPD and how it can hire in a new way. That's a big assignment. I hope they hire you to help them with that. But what was your message in both cases, please?
Sure. So the article that inspired the podcast was this article, Dear NYPD, You Need a Talent Management Overhaul. And so I wrote it actually for LinkedIn in 2015. So you have to appreciate that it's a 5-year-old article. And at the time, we had lost Tamir Rice and Eric Gardner. I mean, there were just a rash of killings literally between 2013 and 2015. And it had worn on me in a big way. I think it's also important to note that I am the daughter to a sergeant, retired sergeant of the NYPD, and was married to somebody who also is in the NYPD. So my whole family is steeped in it. And so I felt like I had it on good authority to take them to task publicly and say, hey, something's not right here, and here's what I'm seeing. And from a talent management perspective, this is how you can be doing things differently. One of the things, for instance, is, that this idea that they actually will hire cops from places in New York where they don't have to live. And so there's no cultural awareness with these cops for the people that they're having to serve. And I don't even know that they think that they're serving them. They absolutely are in service to these people, but they're not, so you can't, it's my opinion, you can't take somebody from Locust Valley, for those that are in Long Island or Fort Salonga, and go drop that person, that woman or man, in Flatbush, Brooklyn, or Washington Heights. It is a culture shock. They don't even know what to do with that. They're where I'm at. The birds chirp and crickets too, and it's pretty much Hakuna Matata every day. you go into that ecosystem, there's just a different way of living. And it doesn't mean that people are committing crimes, although they may be. But for them, everything looks like they're committing a crime. Everything looks like some sort of affront to the system. And, much like a lot of the other things we're talking about, there are dollars and cents, and a lot of them we're starting to find out tied to those tickets and those arrests and those things that cops so readily do on a regular basis. And I wanted to expose that because it's important to know there's a difference between policing to do the greater good, and there's a difference between policing to actually destroy a whole community. And that was just something I couldn't stand by, especially where people that look like me were losing their lives wantonly. And I took a lot of heat for it in 2015, but 5 years later, I'm very pleased that the reaction is different, and that people are asking the question of the NYPD why they never listened or even inquired as to how they can change these things, and that there's more visibility for the changes overall, not just with the NYPD, but overall that need to happen to policing.
Thank you. And I'm glad that those are connected. I just wanted to show you that lots of people are commenting and liking our posts, including Lars Schmidt, who you might know. He's at Lars on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great expert on social and on HR issues, and he's terrific, and he's got a terrific podcast. Those of you who are interested in HR issues, it's called 21st Century HR, and you should definitely check it out. And he's at Lars on Twitter, and Janine is at Ms. MZ, Janine Nicole. And
Yes.
It's great that you were with us. A final thought before we let you go. We have one more task before we go that I mentioned to you, but before then, a final thought from you.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I think the final thought for me is I know that these times are really uncertain, or they feel that way, and things feel chaotic, and it feels like every day there's just something new. I think it's important to remember that it's just that it's in our face, that it's uncertain. Everything is always uncertain. Nothing is ever what we want it to be, or going to go the way we'd like it to be. But I think that there's a lot of good that will come from this. And I feel like for those of us that need something to latch onto right now, just latch onto the concept that there are a lot more good people that want to see this thing go well. I have taken heart in finding communities for myself to join, whether that's through meditation or just communities in general of things that interest me, where I'm able to connect with other people of different races, backgrounds, creeds, you name it, to remind myself of what's good about humanity. And so I invite you to do the same, however we can, even at a distance. Continue to connect with people. Don't shut yourself off from other humans. Try to learn from other people. Try to keep that connection going. Try to collaborate with other people where there's shared interests in mind. And I think, with that mindset, we will definitely get through all of this.
Thank you so much. Let's see some of the comments coming in. We're losing lives wantonly. Your article proved prophetic. Jonathan says, great program. Thank you. Rose says, thank you, Apollo. Janine is a great thinker and doer. And if people want to connect with you, give us your website again, and give us your, is it LinkedIn that you prefer if people only connect in one place?
Please definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm at Ms. Janine Nicole, both on Twitter and on Instagram. So feel free to connect with me there. And the website is www.talentthinkinnovations.com. Podcast is Growth on My Terms, and that's at Anchor FM.
Wonderful. That is so cool. And before you go, I told you that one of the things we do on this show is, after listening to Kimberly Crenshaw say their names, we're actually going to say some of the names, because we can't say all the names. That not even all the names are known. So thank you for doing this with me. What we'll do is I'll put up a list, and maybe you'll read a few and then take a breath, and then I'll read a few, and then we'll switch off, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And we're very aware that this is a sacred opportunity for us to remember the folks who have fallen. And on the left, you are seeing this amazing Time magazine cover by Titus Kaffer of a mother and child and a lost child taken away. And on the right is this photograph of a young George Floyd and his mother, Larsenia. And she would die 2 years before him, and he would die almost 2 years to the day. He would be killed almost 2 years to the day and buried next to her in, as we know, in Houston. So tragic. So let's go with these names. And again, as comfortable as you can be, Janine, over to you.
Sure. The names are Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray.
William Chapman, Sandra Bland, Darius Stewart, Samuel DuBose, Janet Wilson, Kaylin Rockmore, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile.
Joseph Mann, Terrence Crutcher, Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Stephon Clark, Danny Ray Thomas, Antoine Rose, Botham Jean.
Tatiana Jefferson, Michael Dean.
Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd.
And Rashard Brooks and Emmett Till and everybody in between and so many other people. Thank you for doing that. What do you think about saying their names, and what was it like to read those names in that context? And I really appreciate you doing it with us. And why do we do it?
It's important. I recently was asked to produce an international talk for this event happening soon, actually next week, called TA Global Gathering. And the talk is called Black Women Rise, an honest discussion about race and work. And in putting that together, I felt strongly that we had to recognize those names. We didn't have the time to be able to read them, but I wanted them up on the screen for people to see. I think it's easy to, my opinion is it's easy to write off Black, Indigenous, people of color in general. That's just the way the US has been. But it's even easier to write off anybody in general, and certainly us, when you can't connect a name or a face with it. And I think now that we've all been sheltered in place and we have no choice but to look in front of us and see the names and hear their names and see their families and see the hurt and the pain, I think people are finally connecting the dots, like, wow, why are we this hateful? Why are we this terrible? Where have we gone wrong as a human race that we've normalized the killings and the deaths of these human beings? And so we should continue to say their names. We've said names of people for years, and we've even pledged to them who have created mass destruction among marginalized communities. So I don't see why it wouldn't be fair and equitable in this time to finally say names of people who really lost their lives senselessly.
Thank you. And I can't let you go without having you tell us what's behind you, all those cool drawings from the kids, plus this, I don't know, is that a vision board? What is that?
It is. It's a vision board. So I did this in 2016, and it's still bringing me good luck. That's another thing. If you happen to have the extra time, vision boards work. I was skeptical, but this board here is still bringing me good tidings. Just having it in my line of sight as I work helps me to keep my eye on the prize. And all that other stuff back there, that's my kids and their 1,001 pictures that they make for me daily, and my whiteboards. This is the true work from home, run a business from home here. That's how I organize my projects and my clients and, keep everything together. So.
You love it. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. And thank you for inspiring and helping so many people right now all over the world. And they'll all watch the replays available to everybody. As soon as we go off the air, it comes back And I hope you will also share it with your great network.
I absolutely will.
And to
Thank
everybody,
you so much.
thank you. I will let you go and I'll say goodbye to our folks. Thank you very much. Everyone follow at Biz with a Z, Janine, Nicole on Twitter, and Talent Think Innovations. Please follow
Talent Think Innovations.
Yeah, Talent Think Innovations.
Bye, everybody.
On Twitter. On the internet. Bye-bye. And wasn't she awesome? Please follow her. And if you would like to be a guest or you know someone who should be a guest, please contact me. Sree at Sree.net is my contact information. We want to hear from you. You can see our 100 episodes archive right on our YouTube account, youtube.com/SreeNet. My email is Sree at Sree.net. We're looking for guests, themes, topics, sponsors. We'd love to hear from everybody who can help us, work with us, collaborate with us. We would love to see that. And a reminder that this is our promo card that gives you a sense of what we've put together and what we've done so far. And we're just getting started. That was on day 75. Here's on day 100. And we're very, very proud of the work we've done. And we've done it because of you, and us working together has made this possible. So thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon. Great comments coming in from everybody. And Ellen and Apollo, thank you very much. We're very grateful. We're at 110 days in. I'm laughing because otherwise I will be crying. There's so much shame in what is happening in this country right now. And we are not taking responsibility as a country. Our leaders have failed us. And that's why we're here in this terrible, terrible situation. We look to the world and say, teach us, teach us, teach us. Thanks very much, everybody.